The Middle Ages, an age of brutality and honor, but either way, an age of martial prowess. The following list is the top 10 weapons of that age. They are placed in a random order as this video focuses on what made each weapon really special. Only melee weapons are included and only of the medieval time. This video is about the European Middle Ages, so I didn't include weapons from other civilizations. Final personal note. This is a very fun video for me personally that I wanted to make for so long, so I hope you will enjoy it as well. The Arming Sword. The commonplace sword we simply know as a one-handed sword was, in fact, a versatile killing tool, offering two edges as well as a deadly point, and a clever crossguard to protect the hand and control the enemy weapon. It is no mistake that it was so sought after that every fighting man wanted to have a good one, if he could afford it. Its weight was not too much, so that it could be an easily maneuverable weapon of high speed, able to overpower other more slow weapons. Of course, it faced problems against full plate armor, but no weapon is perfect. The Battle Axe. A slightly varied version of axes ordinarily used for woodworking or pruning, or very often those same axes used for military service. The battle axe was a very effective weapon for striking hard, with even only one hand. Its secret is that almost all the weight is on the business end, therefore creating incredible momentum for that sharp edge of it. The result is deeper wounds than an arming sword would cause with a cut, and the ability to reduce enemy armor to something resemble a car accident with just a few strikes. However, it was a lousy parrying weapon and generally slower than a one-handed sword. It also required a greater degree of accuracy to hit than a sword, simply due to the far shorter blade that needed to connect with a moving target. The Dagger. A humble weapon, deceivingly powerful. The dagger can, given the right distance to the target, be inserted in the most vital of spots in the human body without meeting much resistance due to the thin blade. The ultra-light weight and the short distance from the controlling hand to the end of the weapon mean the ultimate in accuracy and speed, if you somehow overcome the disadvantage you have before you close on the enemy. However, the dagger comes with another great boon that no other bladed weapon has to this extent, and that is concealability. If you carry a sword or axe, it is difficult to hide, but hiding a dagger is really easy. It is also extremely versatile as an all-around tool, the medieval equivalent of the survival knife. The Falchion. I guess some people loved the chopping power of the axe, but also loved the large cutting surface of the sword. Those people decided to make the Falchion. With a blade that gets progressively wider towards the tip, this sword gains the momentum of an axe, but while retaining the cutting edge all along. Of course, it loses the length of the sword, so that the weight will not make it unwieldy with one hand, and thrusting is not as easy or deep as with an arming sword. But it does become a good trade-off for when one could be faced with armored opponents, but still has a more limited effectiveness against plate than an axe. The Greatsword. So, somebody thought, why not take a sword and make it really, really big? And so it was done, and the Greatsword was born. With incredible cutting power due to the extreme length and weight of this impressive blade, parrying loses a lot of its meaning, both for the defender, but also for the attacker, since this weapon is hard to manage quickly. However, its ability to sever big chunks of flesh and bust all but the sturdiest types of armor didn't pass unnoticed, and made it popular with professional fighting men all the way to the early Renaissance, when versions with extra devices were popular, such as protective side rings or secondary protective lugs further up on the blade's length. From the Scottish Highlanders all the way to the German Landsknecht mercenaries, the Greatsword saw a lot of use on the field of battle in Europe. The Halberd. If you're wondering what could have a more devastating cutting power than a greatsword, The answer is easy: the halberd. An incredibly versatile weapon, it is basically an axe and spear hybrid, mounted on a long pole. The cutting power that the heavy axe head gains due to the length of the shaft is second to none, and can but dismantle shields and armors when in full speed. However, with the exception of the less accurate overhead strikes, halberd strikes require a significant amount of space, not easily found when fighting in formation. But, luckily, the halberd also sports a spear point, so it is effectively a parrying spear due to the axe head protruding from what's used as a spear in formation. It is also, due to the length, a great weapon to use against cavalry. The point can threaten a mounted knight, and the strikes are strong enough to kill a horse. This unique set of traits is what made it a standard weapon of footmen and knights on foot across Europe, in many variations, such as the English bill, wherever they expected to have to effectively deal with horsemen and footmen in armor without needing to switch to a different weapon. However, nothing is perfect, and the halberd comes with its own set of drawbacks. It requires extreme physical stamina due to the great weight so far from the hands. It is slower than a spear, and the axe-like blade has a short cutting edge, past which it would be party time for your opponent, like with all pole arms. The longsword. A longsword is neither as short and light as an arming sword, nor is it as long and heavy as a greatsword. But the fact that it's used with two hands can make it faster than both, and with a reach not much shorter than a greatsword's, and much longer than an arming sword's. In other words, it's an exceptional piece of weaponry with great effectiveness against unarmored targets and, with mastering certain techniques, some limited effectiveness against plate too. It is for a reason that the longsword was so popular in history and so many treatises were written for it, since it offered both efficiency and versatility, without too many weapons coming near its levels at the time. The mace. An evolution of the club, from a piece of wood to bash heads with to, well, a piece of wood with a piece of iron on top to do the exact same thing. The usual relatively short handle meant it could be used from the very close quarters where you find yourself after a clash in full plate armor, with the head as the main target. Such was its impact that the blow could all but ignore the helmet and still knock the enemy out cold, or even kill him outright. A dedicated weapon against armored opponents, its usefulness was far surpassed by edged weapons when fighting unarmored opponents, or lightly armored fighters. The flanges on later versions of the weapon were designed not so much to cause wounds, but to bite into the enemy armor, allowing the full concussive force of the strike to transfer to the unfortunate target's head or other body parts. A version of the mace with a longer handle was designed to be used on horseback, because, after all, the people wearing full plate armor, fighting other people in full plate armor, were very likely to also own a horse. The spear. Far and away the most popular and common military-scale weapon of the Middle Ages, as well as of antiquity, the spear has earned its place rightfully, and it is for a good reason. This is a weapon that offers so much, especially considering how easy it is to make compared to a sword, for example. It seems almost a deal you cannot pass. Not only does it have the longest range than any infantry weapon, save the pike, which is practically also a spear, just longer, it is also extremely lightweight for its length and very maneuverable. It also allows for very thick formations, in which the men can fight at almost 100% of their effectiveness without requiring more space to properly execute attacks. Also, these formations offer a great offensive capability, since many points can attack only one man at any given moment, which is why spear or pike formations were some of the most effective melee formations in history. However, nothing is without drawbacks, and the main drawback of the spear is that it requires a backup weapon, since it can very easily be stuck into a shield, a body, or anywhere else, or the enemy may get past the point and then control the spear just enough to chop you down. Spearmen almost never entered battle with just a spear, and without some kind of backup weapon, usually a sword or knife they could deploy quickly for close quarters fighting. The Warhammer. Who doesn't like to toy with armor and mock its protective capabilities? Certainly not a guy holding a Warhammer. It might require more of a head alignment than a mace, but it certainly packs a punch. Also, and what a great benefit this is, it requires pretty much no daily maintenance, no sharpening, and even if it rusts, it's still as serviceable. The backside of the hammer was often made into some other weapon, such as a military pick, but either way, it was a very effective, dedicated, armor-fighting weapon that was, for some reason, very popular among knights. Bigger versions of it, such as the pole hammer, increased the impact to the point where it became an entirely different weapon, and pole hammers, as well as pole axes, were, for that reason, exceptionally popular among armored gentry against other armored gentry.